Hi everyone. If you like this video after you've watched it, then hit the like button. If you want to comment, please do. If you want to ask any questions, fire away. If you'd like to share this video amongst friends, family, anybody really, go ahead and do it. And why don't you subscribe? Because you get some excellent videos on this channel. Let's get on with the actual configuration work and video. Okay, so here we are at our DNS server command line interface, so our CLI. Now, the first file we actually want to configure is named.conf.local. So let's sudo into that. So sudo vi named. Now I can tab some of that and we'll put .local on the end. Now I'm using vi, so I'm going to do an escape I here for insert, and I'm going to add a couple of lines at the bottom. And we need to put our new zone in. Now it's very important that we understand how this zone is configured. So the IP address is configured in reverse. Now what I mean by that is my IP address range is 192.168.56.0/24. So I just need to really include the first 24 bits, the masked bits. So I would put in here, for my range, zone 56, remember in reverse, .168.192. If we read that the other way around, it would be 192.168.56. Then we need .in dash addr.arpa, close speech marks, open parentheses. Now the important bit here is that my subnet or my masked bits are 24, and that's why I've included 56, 168 and 192. However, I could have just gone with 192 and said, well, okay, I'm just going to include 192. But that would mean when I configure my PTRs, I would have to include the rest of the address ranges. And we'll see that when we do the reverse lookup master file. So for now, let's go into the next, and we're going to go under the E. We'll put in here type master, and we know we need a semicolon. We go under the T of type, and we put in here file. And this is our file that we're going to create as the master file, exactly as we did in the first zone, our normal DNS zone above. So if we put in here file, /etc, /bind, we'll put it in the same area actually, and we're going to put it in zones, and we're going to call it db.192.168.56. It's intuitive for us then, and we'll close speech marks, and we'll put in our semicolon, and we're going to close our parentheses and a semicolon. We can now save and escape from this file. So escape :WQ, and that saves it for me. We now need to create and configure our reverse DNS master file. Now, as per our original DNS file, we have a file that we can copy. So let's have a look and see which one it is. So it's db127. Now we're going to put it in the zones directory as per our actual DNS master file. So let's do a sudo copy cp db.127 into etc. bind zones, and remember what we called it, db.192.168.56, intuitively our IP address range. Now if we go to zones as I just have, and we do an ls, we see that that file is in there. Now we have to vi that file, so let's sudo vi db.192.168.56, and we'll see that it's very similar at the moment to the original DNS file that we configured in the previous lesson. We actually have to do almost similar changes. So let's do an escape I, because I'm using vi, And I'm going to change the TTL exactly like we did in the previous file, in the previous lesson, 86400. Our SOA has to be the same. It has to be our FQDN with the dot at the end. So we do in here DNS server dot tubetech.example.com. And the second section is exactly the same with admin at the front. So we put admin dot DNS server dot tubetech.com. Our serial number works exactly the same way as it did in the previous file. So I'm going to put in here a date, and I'll put 20250309 and a number on the end, 01. Remember, each time this file is changed and updated, you have to change this number, and that's why I've put the number on the end of it. The refresh, we're going to change again to 3600, 3600. Let's just tidy it up. And we're going to put the retry at 1600, 1600. Let's tidy that up. The expire, we're going to put at 604800, 604800. And we'll just tidy that up one. And the negative cache TTL will be the same as our TTL. So it'll be 86400, and we'll just tidy that up one. As per in the last file, the DNS master file, here we will put name server, name-server, ns-records. We know it's the NS records. Now we're going to remove what's here already. So let's remove all of this, and we'll tab over and we'll put in. We'll tab over one more, and we're going to put NS for our name server, and we're going to put in DNS server dot DNS server dot tubetech dot example dot com with the full stop or the decimal point at the end. Now that's the only server we've got, so that's all I have to put in here. So we're going to go down a couple of lines and we're going to put a comment in, name-server, and this is our PTR reverse DNS records. Now, do you remember in the file, the previous file that we looked at, named.conf.local, I stated that I was going to include in there the first 3 bytes, or the first 24 bits that are masked. So I included 192.168.56. And the reason I did that is because now here, all I have to type is 60 for my actual DNS server. Obviously, if I included the first 16, I'd have to put 56.60, etc., etc. I tab across and I go in. I tab across and I place in here PTR because we're looking at PTR records. I tab across and I have to put in the FQDN. So DNS server dot DNS server, because this is now the actual FQDN part, dot tubetech.example.com, dot, tab across, semicolon, and the actual whole address now. So 192.168.56.60. Now I go in new line, and this one ends in 61. Tab across, in, tab across, PTR, tab across, DNS client 1 dot DNS server dot tubetech dot example dot com, tab across, semicolon, and the actual address 192.168.56.61. Now I've actually finished with that file because I only have these 2 systems. So let's do an escape :WQ to save the file and exit it. All that's left now is for us to test the reverse DNS. So I've gone over to our DNS client, as you can see here, for us to start doing some testing. So the first thing to do is we'll do an nslookup, and we'll type in there server 192.168.56.60. That's the server we want to use. And that's the default server as well, as it states there. So we can state in there, okay, what's 192.168.56.61? And it'll come back and it'll tell us what it is. Okay, now this is our reverse DNS, because if you remember, before we would have to put this in to find out what address we were looking for. And it tells us here. So we see that it's actually working in a reverse. It tells us here, look, and it gives us our FQDN. And if we put in the FQDN, so normal DNS, remember, is name to IP. Reverse is IP to name. So we actually have both working here. I've cleared the screen because we can also do a dig command to test if everything is set up correctly. Now, if it gives me back our FQDN, then it works correctly. So if we do a dig -x and we put in our address, so our server is going to be 192.168.56.60, and we put in there plus short, we know it's working because it brings back our FQDN. Let's do that for our client address as well. Let's do 61. It also brings back our client address. So the testing shows that we have everything configured correctly for reverse DNS, albeit in a very small tutorial, but you now get the idea on how to configure reverse DNS and the zone within Bind. What we're going to do now is we'll go back to the whiteboard and we'll do a quick summarization of this very short reverse DNS lesson. So to summarize lesson 2 and the reverse DNS, so it was DNS bind, lesson 2, reverse DNS. We learned how to create our reverse DNS zone within named.conf.local, how to create our master reverse DNS file, and how we can test with dig, nslookup, ping and Traceroute. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Stay tuned for the next lesson because it gets very interesting when we configure bind for geolocation DNS.